7 minutes past 3:30 on Tuesday afternoon, which means it's time for the regular meeting of Los Angeles City Council's Planning and Land Use Management Committee. My name is Marquise Harris-Doss, and I'm the chair of this committee. I'm joined by members Mr. Bob Blumenfeld, Mr. Greg Smith, hailing from the idyllic San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles. We begin this meeting, like we do all of our meetings, with those folks who have signed up for general public comment. So if we could see the folks who've signed up for general public comment. No people have signed up for general public comment. Item number 1, Mr. Mejia, is?
Item 1, Councilman, is Mr. Bertoni's weekly report.
All right. All right, you want to go now? You want to go at the end?
If you don't mind, if we can just go now. Real quick.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vince Bertoni.
Thank you, Chair Harris-Doss and members of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I just wanted to do an update on the city's progress in terms of a crucial part of our housing and our issue where we're trying to provide for more housing for our city, as well as a variety of types of housing that could be more attainable and more affordable. And one of those aspects is through, one of the ways we can do it is through accessory dwelling units. And the department was recently invited to speak to the state legislature a little bit about some background in terms of what we have done in the city of LA in terms of what our progress has been on accessory dwelling units. If you don't mind, I'd like to invite Arthi Varma, who's our deputy director for citywide planning, to give you basically a summary of some of the issues that she raised to the state legislature, which I thought would be of interest to this committee, because the committee will also be hearing coming up later this year some proposed changes to the city's ordinance regarding accessory dwelling units. So this will give you just a little bit of a background if the committee would like to hear that. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Arthi Varma.
Good afternoon, council members. Arthi Varma. So on January 30th, last week, the Department of City Planning was invited to speak at the joint informational hearing of the State Assembly Committees on Housing and Community Development, as well as the local government, on ADUs. There was a variety of speakers that were invited, including staff from the Housing and Community Development Department, David Garcia from the Turner Center for Housing Innovation at UC Berkeley, Eric Phillips, representing the American Planning Association, as well as the Assistant City Manager of the City of Santa Rosa, a city who has been using ADU construction in the wake of their recent natural disasters. The committee was really interested in hearing what activities the City of Los Angeles has undertaken with respect to ADUs, and I shared a little bit about our ADU ordinance that was in effect, our original ADU ordinance from 1985, and some of the efforts that have been in place over the last couple of years to bring our new ordinance into compliance with state law. Just a couple of interesting statistics to share. We've had over 9,000 building permit applications submitted to the city for accessory dwelling units since state law changed in January 1st of 2017. It's the largest amount of ADUs in the city, in the state. So the assembly members were very interested in hearing about how we were able to generate such a high volume. So shared a little bit about the operations under state law and the ordinance that's under consideration by City Council today.
So 28th.
Yeah.
So we could meet on the 26th.
Mr. Mejia.
Yes, sir.
Your mic is live, sir.
Apologize.
No worries.
Just of note, they were very interested in the addition of movable tiny homes. That is part of our local ADU ordinance that is under City Council consideration, as well as some interest in looking at financing options that might assist in ADUs becoming more available as affordable housing options for Angelenos. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Mr. Blumenfeld? No questions. Mr. Smith? A question that doesn't refer directly to the information that you gave us today, but we've been joined by the esteemed Mr. Gil Cedillo of One Mill Gil fame. Yep. Thank you for being here. A question that got brought to us by a handful of constituents is folks are getting tied up in the process. So of the thousands of applications that are out there, the number I heard was like 2,000 are waiting on either DWP or Building and Safety because of this light pole thing. Could you shed some light on that and maybe share some thoughts about what we might do from a policy standpoint regarding that problem? That seems very serious.
Absolutely. Arthi Varma, so about 20 to 25% of our building permit applications that have been submitted are affected by this utility easements issue. So I mentioned there's over 9,000 building permit applications submitted, 6,000 only have been signed off. And the issue is that DWP has some local restrictions on the ability of siting habitable space underneath utility easement and within 5 feet of it. We've been working with representatives of DWP to identify potential solutions, and those might include either looking at the local regulation that's more restrictive than General Rule 95, which is the state regulation around it, and we're continuing to have discussions about how we can resolve that.
I remember this coming up before. I thought there was some other way that they could just coat the wiring with something different for a house that would make it easier.
So, Arthi Varma, the issue with DWP is is really a safety issue. When power lines fall, they remain live. Other utilities, such as Edison, have technology in place such that when the wire falls, it would immediately become inactive. So, we are looking at different solutions, but to make an upgrade to that technology citywide might be challenging.
Can it be made locally? So you just make the upgrade as needed over these different ADUs?
We're discussing potential building material changes for the habitable structures, but we're still in discussions.
I mean, can the technology be that the wire above the ADU is made such that if that wire breaks, it goes not live versus having to change all of the wires?
On a case-by-case basis. We can continue to have those discussions.
Mr. Bertoni?
No, just add that we've been really working very closely with Building and Safety and Water and Power on this, and as Ms. Varma mentioned, it's just an ongoing conversation. It's very technical from the DWP standpoint. There's issues of construction, the materials themselves. There's liability issues that we're looking at. So all of those are part of the discussion because we see this as such an important component of our potential housing stock that we're looking at all those avenues. And we're happy to, when we come back with our with the formal ordinance itself, when it gets scheduled before plan, we're happy to kind of give you more of an update in terms of those issues with DWP and Building and Safety.
And one last thing on this. At the meeting you were in Sacramento, and you're hearing not just from LA but all these other areas, are they experiencing the same issue as us on this, or did that not come up?
Other cities that are operating under different utilities have other constraints. That this has been an issue that we've been working with as widespread as it is in the city of LA. But as I mentioned, other utilities do have different technology where the wire completely it does not go live when it's dropped.
Right. The issue is in LA that we have the actual physical condition that is the most common, I believe, is when you have the utility overhead in the rear property line. So it's basically where two homes abut in the rear, and then you have your garages in the back, right there. And in LA, we have probably a relatively high percentage in terms of when a lot of our single-family neighbors were built, so that you do have that condition in the back of a detached garage that's been there since maybe the teens or 20s or before, and the overhead utility. Other cities have different conditions, so the utilities may actually be overhead in the streets. Other ones don't have the garages behind it. So we probably have a higher percentage just because of how we're developed than a lot of other cities do. And also, we've actually been producing many more ADUs than any other cities. Other cities that you're talking about, their ADU production, we're doing about 4,000. They're doing maybe 100 or 2 at the largest. So there's a huge disparity between what we're doing and the rest of the state.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. It would be great if there's maybe something in the ordinance that lets us at least give some guidance on how to deal with this.
Sure.
It seems to me that there are two issues. There's one, the actual safety, which is of course the first and the most important one. But then, depending on how your construction is arranged, the costs of the wait time is, can add 10, 15, 20% to the cost of the project, just waiting on this particular issue to be resolved. Thank you. Does that conclude your report?
Yes, it does. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We will, I'll move that we accept the director's report and move on through the agenda.
Sure. Item 2, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Commission. It's a draft ordinance for a vesting zone change and a height district change. The project is located in CD 13, and it's a mixed-use project with 270 residential units.
Excellent. It's my understanding we'll hear from somebody from planning.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Will Lamborn, planning staff. So before you today, as mentioned, is a vesting zone and height district change. This is for a mixed-use project located at 6200 Sunset Boulevard. The project involves the construction of a mixed-use building containing up to 270 residential units and up to 12,120 square feet of commercial, retail, and restaurant uses. The proposed uses will be located within a 7-story building comprising up to 243,315 square feet of floor area. A total of 361 vehicle parking spaces would be provided within 2 1/2 subterranean levels. The project's maximum floor area ratio would be 4.5 to 1. The project site is currently developed with approximately 22,000 square feet of existing low-rise commercial strip center uses and surface parking. All of the existing on-site uses would be removed to implement the project. At its meeting of September 13th, 2018, the City Planning Commission took the following actions: found the project was assessed in the previously certified 6200 Sunset Boulevard Environmental Impact Report, and that no subsequent EIR or addendum is required for approval of the project. Approved and recommended that the City Council adopt a vesting zone and height district change to amend the existing delimitation, allowing for a floor area ratio of up to 4.5 to 1 in lieu of 2 to 1, and also approved zoning administrator adjustments to side yards and for pre-dedication lot area for the purposes of calculating FAR, dismissed a zoning administrator adjustment to utilize the project's pre-dedication lot area for the purposes of calculating density, and also approved master conditional use permit for alcohol and site plan review. The determination of CPC was not appealed, and planning staff respectfully recommends adoption of the vesting zone and height district change as recommended by the City Planning Commission. Thank you, and staff's available to answer any questions. I believe the council office also has some additional information they may like to provide.
Thank you so much. So I have one public comment on this. Todd Nelson.
Councilmember, if there are any changes from the council office, I would suggest taking that before public comment so that the public can speak to it as well.
All right. Mr. Craig Bullock.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Bullock, and I'm with Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell's office. The council member is supportive of this project. It will redevelop an underutilized site to create much-needed housing. In consideration, the applicant has agreed to contribute $1.5 million to the Council District 13 Affordable Housing Trust Fund so that we may further affordable housing in Hollywood. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Todd Nelson now, armed with that additional information.
Hello, honorable committee members. Todd Nelson, Armbruster Goldsmith Delvac, here on behalf of the applicant for this project. We'd like to thank staff for the presentation of the project, thank the council office for their support of the project, and very happy to have received the support of the City Planning Commission, adjacent property owners, neighborhood council, and multiple other stakeholders. Would respectfully like to request your committee's recommendation for approval of the zone and height district change with the addition of the voluntary condition recommended by the indicated by the council office. We're also here and available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. If there is any discussion from the members, seeing none, I'll move that we approve the resolution for general plan amendment and the vesting zone and height district change ordinance as amended per the suggestion of Council District 13. All right, that's been moved. Second from Mr. Smith. Silent second. And hearing no objection, that'll be the order. All right. Okay, so I've just been notified that we have a request with regard to items number 3 and 4
Okay.
to continue those matters
Yes, sir.
going forward. So without objection, that'll be the order. All right, so item 4 to be continued to February 12th, and item 3 to be continued for 15 days.
Yes, sir.
All right. That leaves us with item number 5.
Item 5, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Department relative to the approval of a Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment for the properties located at 6650 through 6668 Franklin Avenue and 1855 North Cherokee Avenue in CD 13.
All right, we're going to hear from Ms. Monterosa from Planning.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Before you today is a SKIA that's been prepared for the environmental clearance for the project located at Franklin and Cherokee. The project proposes the construction of a 6-story over 2 levels of parking, 100% senior affordable housing development in conjunction with the maintenance of a 10-story, 118-unit, 100% senior affordable housing building known as the Montecito Apartment Building, which is located on the subject site and was constructed in 1931. The existing Montecito building, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and more recently designated as a historic cultural monument, will be maintained on the site, and the proposed new building, the Montecito 2, will be physically connected to the historic structure by way of a visual hyphen that will create a shared lobby between the 2 buildings. As filed, the project is seeking a preliminary parcel map, a density bonus request filed as a conditional use to permit senior residential housing development with 118 existing non-conforming units and 68 new units, dedicating 99% of the proposed units for low and very low-income households, in exchange with incentives to increase height and allow reduced side and rear yards, as well as site plan review. At this time, these entitlements are not before your committee. These requests are pending consideration by the Planning Department's advisory agency and by the City Planning Commission. So the SKIA that's presented for your consideration today has been prepared pursuant to provisions of the California Public Resources Code 21155.2. These provisions were adopted as part of Senate Bill 375 in 2008 as a way to provide streamlining for projects determined to achieve the California Air Resources Board 2020 and 2035 greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. Achievement of these targeted greenhouse gas emission reductions is met by demonstrating consistency with the current Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy prepared by SCAG, which CARB has recognized as a plan that accurately quantifies and achieves the greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. So as required, the prepared SKIA incorporates all feasible mitigation measures and performance standards of the Environmental Impact Report prepared for SCAG's studies, and as a result, all identified impacts of the project have been reduced to less than significant levels. A joint public hearing for the requested entitlements was held in May of 2018, and at that time, the actions to consider the project's parcel map were held under advisement pending the adoption of the SKIA that's before you today. Members of the public spoke in both support and opposition to the project. Those in opposition raised concerns related to impacts to the site's existing building, as well as existing garden located on the site. Other concerns were related to the geotechnical analysis of the site and some additional construction impacts. Those in support of the project were in support of the project's proposal to construct a 100% senior affordable housing development in the area without displacing any existing tenants. Planning staff has submitted a formal response to these comments, and they've all been uploaded to the council file. I wanted to touch on just a couple of things. With regard to historic designation and the questions about impacts to resources, as described in the project's environmental document, the existing Montecito is an identified cultural resource. The site's garden area, however, is not a designated resource. At the time of the initial preparation of the SKIA document, a formal report to analyze the impacts of the new construction upon the site and existing Montecito was prepared by the Historic Resources Group and was approved by our Planning Department's Office of Historic Resources. The report found that the project would not result in a significant adverse impact to the Montecito building, meaning that while it would involve a minor change to the building, this minor construction would comply with the Secretary of Interior standards and would not reduce the significance of this resource. And lastly, a geology report was prepared for the project, which documented extensive soils testing that was conducted on site prior to the filing of the case. That included multiple test pits, boring, trenches, and just extensive testing of the site soil. The report did identify 2 existing faults on the property. However, these faults were determined to be inactive, and so these reports were approved by our Department of Building and Safety Grading Division. That's just a brief highlight of the response to my comments. The rest of the responses are in this report. So with that, staff recommends that the plan find the project complies with the requirements of CEQA for the use of the SKIA as authorized by Public Resources Code 21155.2, and further recommends that the adoption of the project's Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, SKIA, as described in planning's January 31st correspondence that's before you today. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Questions or comments, members? Hearing none, we'll first hear from the applicant, Ms. Sales, or Miss Sales representative. Yes, sir.
Thank
5
you,
minutes you have to speak. You don't have to take all 5, but
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. My name is Fred Gaines with the law offices of Gaines and Stacy. I'm here today on behalf of Thomas Safran and Associates, who, as many of you know, is one of the premier, if not the premier, owner and operator, builder of affordable housing throughout Southern California. This is a project. They in fact are the owners of the Montecito, restored that building, now contains 118 100% low and very low income units, and now on an adjacent lot are proposing 68 additional units in a new 6-story building with a connected lobby between the 2 buildings. To do that, we chose, along with planning, and we're very appreciative of all the work in the staff report, which was in much detail, we chose to use a new environmental document called a SKIA, a Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment. This was one of the recent CEQA reforms put together in an effort to make these types of projects, infill projects with housing, with affordable units in transportation-rich areas, go a little easier, a little quicker, and we get some advantages in terms of not having to study certain issues. We get a more favorable legal standard of deference if there were to be a challenge, and supposedly it's supposed to go faster. So this one, I think this might be the 2nd or 3rd one that's come before. It does require that the council approve the SKIA before we can go forward with the entitlement. So we had our initial hearing. We've been on hold waiting for the SKIA, and we've been on hold since May of last year. So we are looking forward to having this approved. It meets all of the legal requirements, as you've heard. The council office is here. You are not voting on the project. To the extent you hear comments today about the project will still go to planning. It's had an initial hearing. There'll be a staff report and a recommendation. It'll go for a planning commission hearing, and so that the substance of the project is still to be decided. What you're doing today is deciding whether this is an appropriate environmental assessment for this project. It does meet all of the requirements, as you've heard from staff, and we'd ask that you approve it. I have with me today, in case you have questions, I'm not going to have them all come testify unless the committee wishes to hear their testimony or has questions, but I have the environmental consultant, the cultural heritage, historic consultant, the property owner's representative, are all here and available to you. But, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it to you as to whether you need them rather than have them all come up and take the time. And with that, I'll conclude my comments, be available for any questions. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. Much appreciated the availability of those experts. So we have a handful of public comment speakers on this matter. I call them. You can come in any order. You'll have 1 minute to speak on this topic. Kathleen Larson, Carl Simeon, Fred Gaines, Doug Haynes, and Ann Godgen. I knew I could count on you.
I guess going to be first. My name is Doug Haynes. What you're being asked to do today is essentially evade proper and CEQA review of this project. That's what's being requested. First off, under SKIA, you have to have a project that's consistent with the allowed density. The project does not qualify in that matter. There are 56 units allowed on this site. There are 118 existing and 186 proposed. That means there's over a 300% increase in allowed density for the project. The project would impact a historic resource since the Montecito grounds are part of the National Register and California Register designation. Whether that's acknowledged or not by the local landmark status is irrelevant. Under the density bonus criteria, if a density bonus would have a specific adverse impact on a historic resource, it is not permitted. Also, the site is acknowledged as being right on top of an earthquake fault line. There's no dispute about that matter. Other projects have been acknowledged as being an active, not inactive site. And again, under the density bonus approvals, if there's a specific adverse impact to public health or safety, it is not permitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. If your name was called, come on up.
Kathleen Larson, Friends of the Montecito. We are for affordable housing, but we're for responsible affordable housing. And trying to make an unsuitable piece of property into a apartment complex addition is not correct. In the area of the historic, this has not been addressed properly. The 1985 designation had it, the land and the property. And the Cultural Heritage Commission under Richard Barron proved that and had it that way. This amendment that came through and the poor city council people have had not enough time to review it. What we're asking for is a continuation so that you and the city are protected and that we are protected and this national historic resources provide for. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Simeon. I'm a tenant at the Montecito Hollywood, and I'd like to speak on behalf of the Montecito. It's a great place to live. They take good care of us there. I've been there for 6 years, and whenever anything went wrong, they took care of us. And I think it's a great project that they're doing, and I just hope the best for it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Gagan. I'm a community stakeholder. I've been to all the hearings because I'm a neighbor of this building. I've also become close friends to the Montecito residents and the Friends of the Montecito. If you feel people don't oppose it, please do go to the city file and see all their letters. And I'm here in their place because many are not able to make it due to illnesses or whatever. The Cultural Heritage Commission said it's unheard of to eliminate parcels of something that's been designated a historic cultural monument. But for this one, CD3 says it's okay, and they just want to designate the building. That's unheard of. Not only do campaign contribution ruin people's lives, and these seniors' lives are being ruined, it killed one who fought this project, she's gone, but it also is destroying our historic cultural resources of a great city like Los Angeles, and that's shameful.
All right, going once, twice. If that's everybody, we'll hear from Mr. Bullock, representing Council District 13.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Bullock, and I'm with Council District 13. The Council Office concurs with the Department of City Planning staff in that the proposed project complies with the requirements of CEQA for the purposes of using a SKIA. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion on this matter, members? Seeing none, I'll move that we approve the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment and findings that the project qualifies as a transit priority project and that all environmental land use criteria has been met per the Public Resources Code, Section 21155.
Second.
It's been seconded affirmatively by Mr. Smith. Yes. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. I'll note for the record that we've been joined by the even-handed Mr. Kern Price, Council District 9. There he is. And there's been a request, Mr. Mejia, that we revisit item number 3.
Yes, Councilman. So the request is to continue the item 1 week rather than 2, pending the adoption of a motion for a 15-day extension in as much as the existing deadline is February the 13th.
It is so ordered without objection? Excellent. Where does that leave us?
That concludes the meeting, Council.
Excellent. We're adjourned. Thank you all so much.